Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Pal the Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to a new Warhammer painting video, and one that is not Mortal Realms related necessarily, and that is because it's Prince Duvalle of the Crimson Court, the Warhammer Underworld's little warband that you can get from the Soulblight Gravelords range as well, which is a fantastic little set, and I do really like the Soulblight Gravelords. They're absolutely brilliant, can't fault them. So I just wanted to do a quick painting video, how I painted them up and how I'm going to get most of my vampires looking as I go through the Soulblight Gravelords range. So, without further ado, let's kick off with it, shall we? So, of course, I've started off with a base coat of Mechanica Standard Grey, and I am applying Flayed One Flesh to all the exposed skin. Now, Flayed One Flesh makes a very kind of muted flesh kind of colour. Works very well when you want to make them look a bit pale, and definitely like they haven't seen the sun in a while, which, you know, should be every vampire. And yeah, gives them a nice kind of a unhealthy pale look to them as well. And then for the armour, I'm going for the standard colours, which is I'm using Corn Red as a base coat. Layer it over all the armour pieces. You will notice there's one piece that I don't do, which is the arm brace, that van brace on his arm, and it's just because I kind of forgot, and thought, oh, I'll do it a different colour, and then I'll change my mind later on, so you will see it change at some point in the video. But for now, make sure you go over all the armour in your chosen colour. And then, because I'm using Corn Red, I want to get a lot of shading in there, so I'm using Reichland Flesh Shade to get into all them recesses, darken it all up a little bit, give it a lot of kind of depth and warmth to the tone itself, and I also apply it to all the fleshy areas as well. Do not forget to do that, because then that'll give you all that shade and definition in kind of things like the facial features, fingers and all that top stuff. Once that's dry, I'm literally layering back over the vast majority of it, just missing out a lot of recesses with Corn Red again, because it makes it a nice colour, it makes it a nice flat colour, it makes the armour look pretty nice and stands it out a little bit better as well. Then, once that's dry again, I'm literally layering over with Mephiston Red to highlight all the main armour and make that armour pop and make it look very nice and a bit brighter red as well. And I will be doing my Blood Knights in a very similar fashion as well. And with all that done, it's time to move back onto the flesh and kind of get that look done. So I layered back over with Flayed One Flesh to bring that kind of paleness back, and then I highlight with good old Pallid Witch Flesh as well. So just a highlight on it, just over things like where the eyebrows would be, the top of the cheekbones, the top lip of the bottom lip, and the nose and stuff like that as well. It makes it stand out really quite nicely and makes it look quite good as well. And then I'll move down to the boots. Now the boots you want to think of something important, but use a Balan Black, and then you can highlight using some pretty cool colours as well, using things like Incubi Darkness and Sotek Green, make the boots stand out quite nicely. Or if you want to go for a duller look, you could use Mechanica Standard Grey and Corvus Black as well, if you want to kind of dull down the tone of the boots. And as you can see, I'm using Ironbreaker now for a lot of the main metal work. I did do it on the van brace on his arm, and then I changed my mind. I didn't think it looked quite as good as I kind of hoped it would, so I do change it later on. But I do layer up over kind of like the plate over his kind of a groin area with Ironbreaker to begin with. And then using Retributor Armour, layering up the other metal pieces to kind of highlight those as well. Gives it a nice look, breaks up a lot of colour as well, and looks very nice with a bit of red to it. Then once that shading is done, I layered over using Skeleton Horde over most of the Ironbreaker kind of paint scheme over the armour pieces. Now, there is a reason for this. Ironbreaker makes it look like a very dull, burnished kind of gold alloy kind of colour. Makes it look really, really nice. Lay it on quite thick. If you need to, do a couple of layers and it will look really, really nice. And then for things like the leather work, so like belts, scabbards and stuff like that, and the pouches that he's got, Dryad Bark works fantastic. It looks really, really good. You can use darker colours if you wanted. So if you want to use contrast, use Wildwood or something like that, and then highlight with Dryad Bark over the top, and you get a really, really nice look out of that as well. For the highlights though on Dryad Bark, use something like Gorethor Brown, and it makes it stand out. It gives it a nice little edge to it. It makes it pretty cool, and yeah, does stand it out a little bit better and makes a bit of definition in all that kind of leather work. And then for the bottom of his kind of tunic and cloak, or whatever he's got on the back, I used Corvus Black. Now Corvus Black is kind of like a grey black kind of colour, very muted, very toned down, and not as bright, and doesn't stand out as much as a Baden Black, but looks very, very nice as well. So it's definitely a nice little trick, especially for using for things like capes, cloaks and stuff like that. And then I went back over his hair with a Baden Black. Now, the reason I had left it so long is I wanted to get a lot of the detail done first before I went back to the hair, and so I left it as long as I felt I could. I thought, you know, vampires should be dark haired, so I went with a Baden Black for his hair and highlighted with some Corvus Black later on. For the inside of the cloak though, I went slightly different. I used Incubi Darkness. Now this gives it a nice kind of like deep turquoisey kind of colour that looks really, really nice, and it stands out quite nicely. So it's definitely a nice way of doing things. Makes it look really, really good, and you can get some really cool looks out of it as well, especially for on the inside of cloaks. It makes it look pretty damn good. And then it is time to highlight up a little bit more, so I used Wild Rider Red to highlight the edges of the plate armour and stuff like that. I had used Auric Gold on certain little edges of the gold trim, but mostly I just left it as one flat colour, and yeah, it looks pretty decent in my opinion. I'm quite happy with the results of it. I think it looks pretty alright. It does alright out of it. There are some other little kind of areas to highlight as well, so over the things like Incubi Darkness, use Sotek Green to highlight. It makes it stand out very, very nicely for all the ripples and the kind of the ridges in the cloak. If over the Corvus Black you want to do some highlights as well, use Incubi Darkness as a small edge highlight, and then use Sotek Green as a very, very fine edge highlight in certain places. Makes it look really, really good. Makes it stand out quite nicely, and yeah, you'll have pretty much your end result. For things like them big massive bits on the back, of them bony bits, use literally very simply Wraithbone and Skeleton Horde. Makes it look really, really good, and you can get a really nice look out of it. If you want to go one further, mix in a little bit of Dryad Bark towards the very top ends, so you get a kind of a gradual breakdown into kind of like a darker colour to a lighter colour to the tips. But that's it. So the whole Crimson Court are done, all 4 models. I'm quite happy with them. I think they look pretty decent. I'm quite happy with how they've gone. A few little things I would have probably done differently in certain places, but the end result has worked out just as I imagined it would be, in all honesty. But that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and yeah, I'll catch you soon. Bye bye now.